Hey there, and welcome to a new episode of the Dietitian Success Podcast. I am your host, Krista Kolajesic. The Dietitian Success Podcast is the business and entrepreneurship podcast specifically created for registered dietitians. I am the founder of Dietitian Success Center. If you are new here, if you're new to the podcast, and I love to talk about entrepreneurship for registered dietitians. That's my favorite topic to talk about. We are in the world of entrepreneurship every single day. And I say we being myself, my operations manager, Maria, and my content manager, Olivia. We are living and breathing entrepreneurship every single day. And we're learning so much through that process. And so I love to have this podcast as a platform to be able to bring you along and share the experience with you, share some of the highs, some of the lows, some of the challenges, and answer some questions about entrepreneurship as well. So if you are tuning into this podcast for the first time in a little while, first of all, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. Second of all, this is actually the first episode that I'm recording live. I say live. I'm recording it on Tuesday, March 10th. It's going to come out next week. But the past 3 episodes that I've released, which have been interviews, were interviews that I did pre-maternity leave. So I just got back from maternity leave with my second baby boy, Ramsey, and so I took a few months off and I've just started back to work, and I've started back to work on very, very limited hours. By the way, with this episode, I'm going to start with a little personal update, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how the structure of these episodes are going to be changing a little bit to something kind of new and creative and fun. So I'll talk you through that. I'll talk you through what we are working on as a company, as a team, because I love to take you along on that journey. And then we'll get into some of the content. So as a little life update, like I said, I am just getting back from maternity leave with my second baby, and I'm on super limited work hours, super limited work hours. I work about an hour a day, maybe an hour a day, because of course I have my sweet baby boy home with me. But so I'm working during naps, which are still kind of unpredictable. I'm working during naps, but then I am also, my husband works from home, which is really, really nice. We're so lucky to have that. He works for a company, but he works from home. And so during his lunch hour, he's able to do some childcare while I do a little bit of work as well. So it's been... And then sometimes in the evenings when I'm watching TV, I'll just do things like responding to emails, because I often just do not have the capacity to do that during the day. So, it's an interesting season of life. It's feeling very busy. It's feeling like a lot. It's feeling like a lot of task switching every day. But we're just kind of rolling with it, knowing that it's not going to be like this forever. And, it's all also fun. I love that I get the balance of both. I love that I get the balance of hanging out with my little guy and then also getting to do a little bit of work and getting to use my creative brain every day too. That's been fun, and that's been feeling really fulfilling. So yeah, I definitely feel like I have lived 10 lives by the time 8 a.m. rolls around, but that's okay. I think that's just being a parent, honestly. I think that's just being a parent. So that's my little personal update for you. And then I want to talk a bit about the structure of this episode, just depending on where you're watching it. So right now I am recording this in my new office, and I'm recording the video because I want to, so I'm doing the audio and the video. So audio, we're going to post obviously on all of our podcasting platforms, but one thing that we haven't really done with the podcast so far, which I know is becoming more and more desirable, is actually posting the video of the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, which you can do now, and YouTube as well. And so I haven't been super diligent about the video part. I've sort of just been in this era of I'm just going to try and get the podcast recorded whenever I can, which is still the priority, but I also want to try and do video too. And so we are doing the audio and video at the same time. I also want to get to a point where I can live stream it so we have a private community within Dietitian Success Center. It's a free community, by the way, so make sure and join it. You just go to dietitiansuccesscenter.com and download our free starter kit. And once you're in the starter kit, then you get added to our free community. Last time I checked, which was yesterday, I think we were over 6,000 dietitians in that community from around the world. And it's really such a cool space to be able to share and ask questions. And we have a bunch of awesome free tools in there too. As a part of the starter kit, you get a number of free client handouts, cheat sheets, etc. So check that out. But all that to say, where was I going with that? All that to say, oh yeah, I want to start live streaming it in there too. I did that a little bit before I went on maternity leave. I did that for a couple months, or rather when I got pregnant with my second baby, I was doing that. And then the podcast took a bit of a hiatus because I was super sick during pregnancy. So that was fun. So took a bit of a hiatus, but would like to get back to that too, because that was really fun. People could like submit questions while I was recording, so I could actually answer people's questions about business and entrepreneurship in real time, which was really fun. So we're going to try that again for sure. But yeah, if you're tuning into the video, then that's awesome. And then in terms of the structure of these episodes, one of the things I'm going to try out for a little while, and we'll kind of see how it goes, is I would love to, so if you've ever listened to any of Alex Hormozi's content, I mean, some people love him, some people don't love him, whatever, but aside from that, I really find his podcast to be so interesting because he basically just does, every one of his podcast episodes is essentially a Q&A episode where he just answers a bunch of questions that come in from the audience. And I always get so much value out of those episodes. And so I thought, well, wouldn't that be fun to try and replicate that type of a format for this podcast? It gives me a chance to be able to talk about different topics and to not feel like I have to do such an incredible amount. Like the thing is when you have a podcast episode that's dedicated to one topic, there's a lot of work that goes into pre-planning for that episode, right? Because you have to make sure you have enough content to talk about that topic for 20, 30 plus minutes, depending on how long that episode goes. And I love that. And I love that format. And I love doing that research. And I love talking about things in long form, but I'm just not really in the season of life for that right now, which I'm sure you've already gathered from the fact that I work for about an hour a day. And by the way, that hour of day, if I have a call, so sometimes I'll have like a meeting booked during that hour of the day, then that's my work time. And that's it. That's all I'm getting done. And so yeah, it's sort of one of those things where I'm just not really in the season of life for that. So I'd love to be able to still have the podcast going, but figure out a way that I can make it a little bit more sustainable for me right now. And it might not always be like this, but being able to answer questions that are just a little bit more ad hoc, I can just sort of speak to them off the cuff a little bit more, I think is going to be helpful for me, but also insanely valuable to you as well, because I always just try and make this podcast a ton of free value because I want to see more dietitian entrepreneurs out there crushing it. I want to give away as much as I can for free. And it also is a really helpful tool for me to be able to practice how I communicate as well. So when I'm teaching about business and entrepreneurship, when I'm talking about entrepreneurship, and I'm sure you find this as a dietitian too, right? When we teach about different topics repeatedly, every time we teach about it, we get a little bit better at it, right? We get the opportunity to refine our language, to make it more concise, to make it more understandable, to simplify it. And that's really the journey that I'm on as well. I really am so keen on continuous improvement and just making sure I'm delivering the best information. And so that's my objective too here is that, selfishly, I can practice my own skill set of coaching and teaching through entrepreneurship. So let's talk about a little bit of a business update. And then I'm going to get into the 2 to 3 topics / questions that are going to be addressed this week. Now, I didn't mention that, but this is basically how it's going to work is every week my team is going to compile 3 topics or 3 questions that we've been asked, whether it's in our community, whether it's topics that have come up through our entrepreneurship membership, whether it's stuff that I've just been asked about in the DMs or things that are just asked a lot. And so we'll talk about 3 topics every single episode. And so they will submit, my team will look for those topics every week. They'll submit them to me. And then that's what I'll use as the outline for these podcast episodes. Okay, so today, those 3 topics are going to be talking about price increases. That's going to be the first one, price increases, and how do we do that? I'm going to be talking about my favorite business books, because that's a question I get literally all the time, constantly, business books. And then I actually want to talk through a really interesting case study from our own Instagram account at Dietitian Success Center. And I want to talk about how we have been able to see some pretty rapid follower growth in the last 6 months or so. Well, yeah, the last year, but honestly, the most rapid within the last probably 2 months, actually. Just for context, it's taken us about 5 years to get to 10,000. It took us about 5 years to get to 10,000 followers. And now we're at 18. And that last 8,000 people came in within the last month or 2, which is wild. So it's been really cool to see the exponential growth there. And I want to talk through how that's happened, because we've learned so much through that process. And honestly, I was sort of in a place where I had like almost given up on Instagram, because I was like, I just don't think we're really seeing much result for the amount of effort that we're putting in. And then all of a sudden, everything changed. And there's a very specific reason why everything changed. And I want to talk through it with you. So I'll talk about that too. But first, we have some really exciting stuff happening within Dietitian Success Center. So if you are new to us, Dietitian Success Center is a membership site for registered dietitians. We have 3 tiers of the membership now. We have the learner tier, the practitioner tier, and the entrepreneur tier. Learner is for you if you are a student. Practitioner, if you are just a practicing dietitian in any setting, whether you are in clinical, community, long-term care, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you are a practicing dietitian working with patients one-on-one, that is the tier for you. And then we also have the entrepreneur tier, which is for all of you dietitian business owners out there. You don't have to just be private practice, by the way. In fact, we find most dietitians in their businesses do a variety of different things. They have multiple income streams. They do a little consulting work, freelancing work, media work. They have a course, they have an ebook, they have et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we really try and meet the needs of all entrepreneurial dietitians within that tier of the membership. But we have those 3 tiers. And really, Dietitian Success Center is here to give you all the tools and resources that you need to save time and thrive in your practice. And so you get access to hundreds of client handouts, video courses, CEU workshops every quarter, and so much more. So just check it out online to get more information about what DSC is. But all that to say, another thing we're working on, which I'm so excited about, I can't even contain my excitement. It's like every time I talk about this, I want to cry because I'm so excited. We are doing our first in-person event in 2026. I have had this on my mental vision board for so long, and it's just never felt like quite the right time. And 2026 is the year that we're doing it. So we are calling it the Dietitian Success Summit. It is going to be hosted in Toronto, September 28th to the 30th at Toronto Beach Club, literally the sickest venue, okay? This is not your average hotel, ballroom, conference room conference, okay? It's gonna be completely different than anything you've ever experienced before. It is all about fun. It is all about connection. It is all about learning. It is all about community. It's about food. It's about just bringing depth and bringing confidence and bringing community and bringing love and bringing laughter and bringing coolness to the dietetic profession. That is our objective. So it's going to be so awesome. It's for you regardless of where you are located in the world, and it is for you regardless of your area of practice, okay? Doesn't matter. There's going to be 2 tiers of ticket sales. There's going to be general, and then there's going to be an added entrepreneurship tier. But the general tier is really going to be for all dietitians. It's for you, again, if you're working in clinical, community, private practice, whatever. We are really focusing on giving you the skills to excel in your career, in your personal life, in your professional life. And I'm not going to talk actually too much about the agenda because we're going to be releasing more about that over the next couple of weeks. But just know that it is really centered around you, okay? And your personal, amplifying your personal skill set. It's going to be so fun. Okay. I'm not going to talk anymore about it, but we are very much in the midst of planning that. So that was my business update for you. You can find the wait list in the description of this episode. Join the wait list because tickets are going to go on sale at the beginning of April and they're going to go quick. And we have a super limited capacity with this venue. And so, yeah, it's going to be sick. Definitely join the wait list so that you can get first dibs on those tickets. Okay. Wow. That was a long introduction, but it felt important to be able to talk through all those topics. Okay, so let's get into our first question for today's episode. And this is a question that we get all the time. So I've paraphrased it into a question that probably a lot of you will be like, oh yeah, I've thought that before because we get this all the time, whether it is within just our free community or within the entrepreneurship membership where dietitians can post questions in the community. And then they can also submit their questions to our team through the on-demand business coaching, or I've been asked this any number of times when I'm working with dietitians one-on-one through the entrepreneurship membership. And so the question is, I'm nervous about raising my hourly rate for my private practice. I want to increase by $10 per hour, but I'm worried that will make my prices inaccessible. What should I do? Okay, so let's tackle this question. And by the way, this question, again, I really like to make sure that I always am teaching in principles and frameworks that can apply to you regardless of what you are selling. I don't really care if you are private practice or not, if you are in consulting and freelancing, if you are doing brand work, whatever, these principles still apply to you. And so hear me when I say pricing and pricing psychology will be something that will follow you throughout your business, regardless of whether you are negotiating a group workshop or you are trying to get one-on-one clients. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so let's talk through this. So the biggest thing that I like to say about pricing is that pricing is an equal and opposite exchange of value. And you know if your pricing feels off. It is a feeling. It is a feeling. And it is very individualized. And the reason why it's individualized is because the price that feels right for us is very much dependent on things like how long we've been doing the work, maybe our education and training, maybe our confidence, how long we've been practicing, et cetera, et cetera. Like I know that I would have charged very different prices at the start of my business journey than I am now. And the Dietitian Success Center membership has changed price many times over the year as we have gained more value and we've, had that feeling of, I think the value within this membership actually should reflect a different price point if we're thinking about it as an equal and opposite exchange of value. And so generally, from my experience, if your pricing feels off, right? It is a feeling. It's like if pricing is off, there's this feeling of, maybe I have a little bit of resentment towards my work because It just feels like I'm not getting paid enough for the amount of work that I'm putting in. I'm sure we've all been there before. We know that feeling. So if our pricing is off, then this is definitely a signal that we're going to want to make a change. And pricing can and should change over time. So the question always comes up, or the conversation always comes up, and this is so common within dietetics because we are a helping profession. Accessibility is really important to a lot of dietitians. And so, I would like to also offer up the thought here that accessibility and earning a wage that honors your time and your experience are not and cannot be mutually exclusive. So what I mean by this is if you do not earn enough money in your business, you do not have a business, right? If you don't earn enough money in your business, you don't have a business. And ultimately, you are no longer in service for people to be able to access you, right? So the two very much have to walk hand in hand. Earning a living wage, earning a wage that feels really good for us, and keeping our prices accessible, those can walk hand in hand. But then the other point that I want to bring up, because I hear this a lot, this term about accessible pricing being thrown around quite a bit. And the other thing I want to say is that, who is to say what price point is accessible, right? Like, who is to say that if you increased your rates by $10 more, that that's suddenly inaccessible? What is accessible to one person might be inaccessible to somebody else, right? There's no blanket statement around what price points are accessible. And so consequently, because of that, we ultimately just have to decide on the price points that are going to work best for us. And there's always options available to us, like offering sliding scale if we want to, for people that actually just simply cannot access the price point that we are charging. There's all sorts of different options available to you for those types of scenarios. So for example, like my therapist, she is a psychologist and she charges $220 per hour. But I can see on her booking page that she also has an option for sliding scale where, you can contact her and you can work through something else if you need to. So, I think that's a really interesting idea. But all that to say, the $10, the raising your hourly rate by $10 is not really the point, right? Because what is accessible to somebody might not be accessible to somebody else. And what I would actually do is I would actually go into your books or just look at your average number of clients per week, and I would look at what would actually be the financial impact of increasing your hourly rate by $10 per hour. It might not seem that significant, but in the grand scheme of your weekly or your annual, the amount of money that you're making from your business, this could actually be hugely significant for you in your practice. And this could be, the difference between your business being sustainable and preventing burnout and not. So, and again, this principle can be applied to if you're doing group work, if you're doing consulting and freelancing. Again, every company, every organization is going to have a different price point that is accessible to them. And so that's why pricing ends up being dynamic, and there's just no one size fits all approach here. Okay, so that is the piece around pricing. The next topic that I want to talk about are what are your favorite business books and how do you actually make time for reading? So if you are in the Dietitian Success Center Entrepreneur membership, you get access to our DSC Business and Personal Development Book Guide, which is just a really long Google Doc where I share all the different business books and give you like a synopsis so that you can choose which one you feel like is the most relevant for you. But I want to share my top 3 right now. I want to share my top 3, and because I think that reading business books is so incredibly important. It's one of the best ways to get really, really good quality information without having to get a degree in something else, right? It's one of the least expensive ways to be able to improve your knowledge and improve your training. I love books, but the question often comes up, well, how do you actually make time for reading? And that has depended on how I make time for reading has been different depending on the season of life I'm in. So pre-kids, when I would get up in the morning, I would read for 10 minutes in the morning. I would read a business book for 10 minutes in the morning while I was having my coffee. Now that I have kids and my mornings are a little bit more, I would say, chaotic, I mostly listen to books. I still read fiction books before bed. So I still read like 10 minutes before bed. But if it's a business book, I'm not reading a business book before bed. I just don't want to get my gears churning right before I'm about to go to sleep. So I typically will listen to audiobooks. And what is so great is you can get audiobooks from your library. And then if you have Spotify Premium, the number of audiobooks that are available to you through your membership on Spotify is amazing. I think I have yet to find a book that's actually not available on Spotify. Now, there's a limit to how much you can listen to every month, but still, it's such an awesome option. And so when I'm in the car, when I'm out for a run, when I'm out for a walk, when I'm cleaning the kitchen, I am listening to something. I rarely ever listen to music now. I love listening to books, audiobooks, or podcasts. And so that's how I make time for that. But I do want to share my top 3 books, business books right now. The other reason why I love books is because, and this might be a frustration for a lot of people, but I actually think it's something that's really important, is that 2 books can say complete opposite things. And the same thing can be true for podcasts, right? How I talk about something might be completely different and maybe in opposition to how somebody else talks about something. And that's totally okay, because it actually forces you to become critical and to make choices for yourself, to hear information on both sides and decide what resonates the most with you. I remember I was at a conference and I was speaking with someone. Her name is Carol Donovan. She's a dietitian in Canada. And she always said the quote, take what you like and leave the rest. So like when she was talking, whenever she speaks, she's like, take what you like, leave the rest. And I've always remembered that because I think it's so true. It's the same with this podcast, right? Take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. But let me share my top 3 business books. Number 1, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. This book is all about how small, consistent actions over time can lead to exponential growth in your business. And sometimes there will be activities in business that you will do every single day and you'll think, wow, this is not moving the needle at all. I don't feel like I'm seeing any impact from this, until the combined impact of those small, consistent actions is enough to suddenly make everything go whoop. And I will tell you that we experienced this in 2025. And it was sort of the first real, up until then, we had just been growing steadily. And then towards the latter half of 2025, suddenly we saw this shoo. And it was really cool to see. And I truly believe it is because of the small, consistent actions that we do all the time that led to that. So definitely read this book, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, Playing Big. Now, this is more so for the women, the girlies in the audience. It is very much a book about, well, you can see on the cover here, Playing Big, practical wisdom for women who want to speak up, create, and lead. I read this book when I was first starting my business, and it was an essential read for me, because going from working a 9 to 5 or being in a role that hasn't required you to like necessarily get visible, maybe have an opinion, put yourself out there, put yourself online, speak your truth. Being in a role that hadn't required me to do that was a big learning curve, and it felt really hard. And it's still a learning curve, by the way. I'm still working on this. I need to read this book again. But Playing Big by Tara Moore, absolutely read this one if you are just getting started, or honestly at any point in your business journey. It is very much a, find your power kind of a book, which I absolutely love. So Playing Big. My 3rd book recommendation, The Referral Engine. And I think that this is such an important book for particularly if you are doing like one-on-one, if you're working with people one-on-one. And honestly, actually, I'm going to take that back and I'm going to say it's important for every business owner, because obviously the work that we're doing with Dietitian Success Center is not necessarily one-on-one work, except for in the entrepreneurship membership where I do some one-on-one business coaching with dietitians. But all that to say, it talks about how important word of mouth is as a driver for growth and for marketing in your business. And it talks about how you can generate and create word of mouth marketing. Now, for us with Dietitian Success Center, actually, I'm trying to think about the last time that I actually looked at this, whether word of mouth has always been within our top 3 marketing channels, as in one of the top 3 things that brings people to the business. It might even be number 1 now. I can't remember if it's 1, 2, or 3, but it's top 3 at the end of the day. It's top 3. That's how important it is people talking to other people about the work that you do. And so the Referral Engine by John Jantz is another one that you could read or you could listen to for sure. Okay, so that is my top 3. And let's move on to the third topic that I want to talk about today. Okay, this is a fun one. So I want to talk a little bit about almost presenting a bit of a case study around DSC and our Instagram growth that has happened over the last year. So let me tell you a story, okay? Story time. Let me tell you. So there was a point, and you probably heard me say it on this podcast before, where I was like, I don't know, guys. I don't know if Instagram is really working so well. This was probably early 2025, and I was feeling a lot of frustration just around, we were posting consistently, and it just it wasn't moving the needle. And what I mean by that is follower growth is one thing, okay? It is kind of a vanity metric, as in it doesn't necessarily translate to business success, but we weren't just looking at that. We were looking at that, but we were looking at how many people were downloading our freebies based off of Instagram. And it was sort of fine, but not amazing when we were comparing it to things like Google search, SEO, people just finding us on Google. And so we decided that it was sort of a critical point in time where we were like, hey, we should either go all in or we should deprioritize this. And so luckily, we decided to go all in. So what we did is, as a team, myself, Marie, and Olivia, we all listened to the book Day Trading Attention by Gary Vee. And so, love him, don't love him, whatever, doesn't matter. That book was one of the most, I think, practical and tangible guides to what does social media look like in 2025 and beyond. And so we all read that book and we all walked away with a very different perspective in terms of what Instagram growth, how we could actually start to see the social media growth that we wanted to see. So we implemented everything. We went hard in terms of how we were implementing. What did that actually mean? Well, it meant that we were starting to post different kinds of content than we had ever posted before. And for us, and what the book recommended, and I don't actually know if this was the language that he used, but this is how I heard it, was posting more if you know type content. What I mean by that is that when you have your ideal client, your target audience of people that you are trying to attract to your content, there are certain situational things or insider jokes or insider things that when you tell them to somebody within that group of people, they're like, oh yeah, I've been there. I've totally been there. And anybody else outside of that profession or outside of that group of people would be like, huh? I don't really understand this. And so it's an if you know, right? It's like if you're a dietitian, you've probably been called a nutritionalist before. You know that you probably get frustrated by all of the misinformation found online. You know that somebody has probably chosen to listen to an influencer on TikTok over you. You know that you get consults for weight loss more than anything else. You know that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? These things that it's these are universal truths about being a dietitian, but people that aren't dietitians just wouldn't get it. And so we started to really play into that concept, that if you know type material. And that's really when we started to see everything shift and everything change. We started to get massive views on our posts, not all of them, by the way. Some of them were complete flops, and that's totally fine. But some of them did really, really well. And in turn, we started to see our follower growth increase. And again, follower growth is an interesting one because, again, it doesn't necessarily translate to business success. But as soon as you start to see follower growth actually translate to people downloading your free resources or like taking an action off of your page to do something else that will benefit your business, that's a really good thing, like a really good thing and a really positive sign that things are actually working. And so that was really when things started to shift and change for us. And by the way, that was a learning process. It did not happen overnight. So actually I'm going to bring up our Insta because I have my phone recording right now. So I can't actually bring up the Instagram account right now. But so we've posted to the DSC Instagram account at Dietitian Success Center 937 times. So that was a lot of trial and error. A lot of trial and error. And so it really does take that, let's, practice and see what's going to work and what's not going to work. And then as you start to find what works, it starts to get easier to replicate that type of a theme or that type of content to, do that again and again and actually start to see the growth. And so for us, like, again, this is one of those signals of the slight edge, the book that I was talking about before, where it's like, if we didn't post those, like, probably 800 posts over the last 5 years, we wouldn't have gotten to the point where we figured out that number 801 was what actually moved the needle in the business. And so, you know, and what is also so interesting that I also just want to bring up, because this is surprising to me, is that it took about I think in January was when we hit 10,000 followers, and now it's March, so it's only 3 months later and we're at 18,000. And I do think that there is sort of a bit of social validation that comes from hitting that 10K point. I think that when people see that 10K number, it's sort of this like groupthink mentality of, oh, this must be a good resource because this many people have liked it before me. There must be some legitimacy to this, not that there's not legitimacy if you're not at that point. So it's very much an arbitrary thing, but it's still interesting. I think that once you kind of hit that point, then there's some exponential growth that can happen after that. That was our experience. Maybe that won't be other people's experience, but I just have found it really fascinating to see how fast the growth has been since hitting that 10K sort of threshold. So yeah, so that's been fascinating. And so feel free to, go back in our Instagram and just kind of look at what that's looked like. Look at some of our most popular posts and you'll start to see how that, if type content starts to really, starts to really resonate with people. And you'll see that in like the number of shares, the number of comments, the number of likes, etc. So yeah, that's been just a really interesting case study that I wanted to share. And honestly, the other thing too that I always like to say is like, also take this with a grain of salt, because if Instagram is not the number one channel that you are using to bring business into your company, that's also fine. Like I said before, take what you like and leave the rest. If this isn't resonating with you at all and you're like, I don't know about Instagram, it just doesn't feel good. But make sure you're like thinking about it from a place of, this doesn't feel good because I actually just have tried it and it doesn't resonate with me, versus I just like don't have the skill set yet. Because you are going to be not good at something when you first start out. It's probably going to suck. You're probably going to feel a little bit cringy. And by the way, we have two Instagram accounts that we have at Dietitian Success Center and at kristaco.rd, which is like my more personal business where I talk about business and entrepreneurship account. And that one we have not figured out yet. And that is our priority for this year, is to figure out how do we get growth on that account. Haven't figured it out yet. So still throwing spaghetti at the wall, trying to see what sticks. And so, yeah, I mean, it is a learning process for all of us. And so I think the more that you can go into it with that mentality of like, this is not going to be perfect, it's going to feel a bit cringe, but I'm going to try, is great. I think that's always great. Okay. Wow. That was fun. I hope you enjoyed that format of the podcast, whether you are listening to this as an podcast episode or watching this as a video episode. Thank you so much for joining me. It was So good to be back. It feels so good to record the podcast again. It's just always really, really fun. And it is a platform that I absolutely, absolutely love. If you want more coaching from me, make sure and check out our entrepreneurship tier of the membership, which is our new tier that just launched this month in March. This tier kicks off with a one-on-one session with me, one-on-one coaching session with me. And so that's a 60-minute virtual session where we really talk through strategy for you. So there's no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to business. And so, we talk through, well, what is your goal and how are we going to work to get there? What are the first 2 to 3 steps that you need to take? Whether you are starting out or whether you are growing your business, it really doesn't matter. And then throughout the year, you can also get coaching from our team through our on-demand business coaching feature, which is where you can submit an audio or a video question to our team. It has to be a well-defined question, and you can do 2 a week at this point in time. I don't know if that'll change in the future, but at this point in time, you can submit 2 a week, and we will respond back to you and provide you with individualized feedback and coaching. You can also post your questions to our community too, where we have just a wonderful, amazing group of dietitians there who are waiting to help you and support you. I think that that's one of my absolute favorite things about our community is it's very warm, it's very friendly, it is filled with just like really nice people that want to help you out and want to see you succeed. And so that is what we're building. Okay. So thank you so much for listening to the episode, and I will see you next week.